Hello there, and thanks for joining me. I'm digital artist Aaron Rutten, and in this video, I'm going to show you my process for creating a logo design in Adobe Illustrator. So first of all, to give you some background on this logo design, this was a logo that I was commissioned to create by my cousin, who is starting a recording studio in Nashville. And the name of that studio is going to be the Power Plant. And he provided the concept for this. He said he wanted it to be kind of a nuclear power plant, atomic energy kind of theme. And he wanted it to be consistent with a different logo, which is for a guitar pedal called Vampower. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through this process. It'll be sped up just a little bit to make it easier to follow. Let's go ahead and get started here. I'm in Adobe Illustrator CC. And I'm going to go ahead and import this mockup that I created in Corel Painter using the brush tools, and I basically just sketched out a really rough version of what I wanted the design to be. I added in a little bit of text in Photoshop, and then I sent that to him, and he had a few suggestions about how to change it. And then we're picking up from that point on here, where I'm going to start cleaning up that rough sketch and turning it into a vector design in Illustrator. So I have my reference image here on a layer. I'm going to go ahead and reduce the opacity of that so it's more transparent. I'll create a new layer above that, and this will be for the triangle, which is the background layer. And I'm going to go ahead and just create a polygon with 3 sides, click to create it, and then stretch it into place to match that guide. I'll increase the width of the stroke until it's a thickness that I like. I'll also round off the corners because I don't want them to be too pointy. I'm going to create another new layer, and this will be for the towers. You'll notice that I'm separating each overlapping object onto its own layer. I'm using the curve pen tool here to go ahead and draw one side of this, and then I'll go ahead and duplicate that side to mirror it to the other side. Now I'm moving around the nodes using the white arrow tool to adjust all of those nodes and curves until it's the way that I like. I can also use the smooth tool to paint over that and smooth it out if it's a little too jagged. Now I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that to the other side and flip and mirror it. Then I'm going to join the endpoints of each end there. Control J is the shortcut for that. Now I have a continuous line. I can smooth it out a little bit if I need to and remove any extra nodes. Now I'm going to take the time to tweak this and get it looking exactly how I want it because I'm going to duplicate this for the smaller towers in the background. So I think that looks pretty good. Next I want to go ahead and create the lightning bolt. So I'm going to go ahead and enable my grid. I'll also turn on snap to grid, and I'll go ahead and just use the grid to create a continuous lightning bolt line here. Then I'm going to select some of these nodes and I'm going to shift them over just a little bit to make that a more diagonal bolt. Putting this on the grid helps you make it completely even and proportionate. Now I'm going to go ahead and select different stroke types here. I can also play with the roundness or the sharpness of the corner points to create a lightning bolt. I can have an effect like that where it's thick to thin, or I can have it thin to thick to thin, and I think I kind of like that. So I'm going to go ahead and use that as the bolt. Now generally speaking, it's best not to have too sharp of edges, so I'm going to go ahead and add a stroke to this to put a little bit of an edge around it and just make sure that I round the edges of the stroke as well. That way it doesn't come to a sharp point on the end of the lightning bolts. It's very slightly rounded. So I've gone ahead and created a new layer here for long bolts, and I'm just going to trace that example that I have there. I'm using the Bezier pen tool for this. Then I'll go ahead and just turn off the stroke and apply a fill. If I need to go back to the stroke just to be able to make adjustments on each of these nodes to make sure that it lines up perfectly with my reference, I can do that, and then I can reapply the fill like so. I think that looks pretty good for those lightning bolts. Let's go ahead and create another new layer. This will be for the text. I'll go ahead and put in those little bars there, and then put in each text layer and try to size it accordingly. I think that looks pretty good for now. I might slant it and make it a little italicized just to make it look more electric, I guess. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and add a stroke around the edges of the, and I'm going to make sure that the edges of that are curved as far as the stroke corners. And I'm going to space out the letters a little bit. You'll need to convert your text to outlines or expand it to be able to make it editable like that. I'm going to space out the power plant letters as well just to make them fit a little bit better. Now I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that all this stuff is centered. So I'll need to group some things together first, and then I'll go ahead and show all of my layers. It makes it really easy to keep things centered by aligning to the canvas rather than each individual object. I've gone ahead and created a new layer with a black background, and that'll allow me to start going in and coloring my layers a more appropriate color. I'm going to bring in that Vampower logo, and I'm going to sample the color from that and make a swatch out of it. That way I'm using the exact same color for that logo for the power plant logo. Then I'm just going to go through and color all of my layers with that yellow color. Now I'm ready to go ahead and duplicate that center tower to create the side towers. So I'll just select the tower layers and then I'll drag it over to create a clone. I want to put that clone on a layer that's behind the original tower there. And I want to go ahead and fill the stroke with a black fill, that way it's going to cover up that triangle that's behind it. And then once I'm happy with the position, I'll go ahead and clone that to the opposite side as well. A quick way to do that is to hold Shift and Alt, and you can drag it over while locking it into that particular axis. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit and evaluate the piece and just kind of take some time to look at it and make sure that it's looking the way I want it to. And I think it's looking pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and begin to finalize this. Because this may be printed on different colored backgrounds or a color other than black, I want to make sure that it looks proper and that all of the different pieces are cut out. So what I'm doing is I'm going on the triangle layer and I'm using the scissors to go ahead and just cut the line that's behind the towers there. And then I'll just go ahead and delete those segments of the line. And anywhere I need to, I'll go ahead and just fix the line and scoot it up so that it overlaps the edge of the towers there. And basically what that's doing is that's allowing me to not have to use a fill on the towers, and it can just be hollow in the middle like so. That way if we print this on a black background or a white background or any other color background, it's going to look the way that I intended. I'll also need to cut some of the lines on the background towers, so those are being overlapped by the foreground tower. And the last thing that I need to do to this piece is just unite any layers that need to be fused together and expand any layers that need to be expanded, because I want this to remain the same if somebody scales it up or down. And if I have a live stroke active, let's say the stroke for the triangle was still set to specifically 3 points, if you went ahead and scaled this up, the width of that stroke on the triangle would remain at 3 points, and it would be small in proportion to all the other lines in this image. So what expanding it does is it just fixes that line width at whatever it is now, and that way it stays the same if you scale it up or down. Same goes for the text. You don't want to leave the text as a live text layer, because if somebody opens this on their computer and they don't have that particular font and they want to be able to edit this, it's going to replace that font with something else. So always outline your fonts for the final version. And I think at this point I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. I've gone ahead and sent it to my cousin and he's approved it, and now he's using this as the logo for his recording studio. If you enjoyed this video, take a quick second to click the like button, and if you're new to my channel, I'd love to have you subscribe. I have a lot more digital art tutorials like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.